Hi and welcome to Bespoke Airsoft, and this is the Dreadnought series, this being episode 1, where we create something a little bit different in a way that you probably wouldn't usually do it. So what is Project Dreadnought? Now Project Dreadnought was thought up between a few friends, talking about how silly it would be to create something that put out a massive amount of ammo, but without going and buying an off-the-shelf minigun. There's one that's been made available by Classic Army quite recently, which is very cheap. It's about £700, but you need to run it on gas or you need to run it on an airline, which we didn't want to do something like that. So it was thought up some way of making an electrical beast that put out a silly ton of ammo, but without going dual sector gear and without putting silly motors in and doing silly rates of fire out of a single M4 or something, can just become in like a speed soft gun or something like that. So we got to thinking, well, more accurately, I got to thinking and decided to take this project to the next level, to the reality stage, basically. So I knew I wanted to build something that was, able to be shouldered. I didn't want it to be something that was massively heavy, incapable of lugging around. It doesn't need to be vehicle mounted. So the first, I'm just going to flip this camera around here. The first thing that we started with was let's build it out of a support gun gearbox. Now these gearboxes, this is the A&K M249 gearbox. I've had an A&K M249 throughout the years. It's been a superb little bit of kit. It took a lot of beating. They do full auto only because of the simple wiring system on a trigger. Just on, off, on, off. There's no mechanical components that cut the trigger off like when you're using something that's semi-auto. There's no MOSFETs installed. It's just a on-off. When you press the on button, the gearbox turns, it puts out full auto, and it's as simple as that. But we'd like to go one step further, so we was thinking, right, let's marry these up. We've seen dual-barreled M4s, we've even seen dual-barreled 1911s and Glocks that are coming out recently. Why not do a dual-barreled support gun? So we thought, that's great, that's a brilliant idea. However, it's not crazy enough. It's been done before with pistols. What's so different about a 249? So then we decided to go to 3, and this is kind of where it stopped. We didn't go any further because 4 or 5 would be absolutely ridiculous and just massively expensive. So we decided to go with 3 M249 gearboxes by A&K. I've used these before, like I've mentioned. They're good, reliable units, as long as you look after them, which is good. So I had these 3 units bought from one of our vendors. The way they'd been shipped, all the wiring and stuff had been battered in the post, and like the sharp edges of the gearbox had just crimped or literally, in some cases, cut through the wires. So all the wiring and the fuse holders and such were damaged. So we knew the wiring that come with the gearbox was going to be unusable, and first we thought, well, first I did think, well, we could replace the wiring with some upgraded wiring. The microswitches are still good, so they can be used. Then it was trying to figure out how to line the gearbox up in such a way that when you pull the trigger, that you would engage all 3 switches. And then I decided, let's take all that, let's not just put 3 gearboxes together and hope for the best. Let's build it up properly, make it into a little mini series and go full blow for it. So we took all the wires off, and these bits will be coming off soon as well. And we started doing a little bit of research into the best way to do this. So the gearboxes are going to be mounted side by side in a horizontal pattern like so, except they'll be much closer together, more like that. So they're going to be mounted like that, with whichever hop units and then barrels and such forth and feeds. We're going to worry about that later. So we've now got 3 gearboxes. We're going to have to figure out a way to mount these gearboxes. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to make some steel plates and put them in between the 3 gearboxes here. Then we're going to use thread rod, M3 thread rod, to go through the unused threads in the gearbox to help put the gearboxes in square on the vertical axis. And then what we can do is we can use the thread rods to fine tune the gearboxes and get them marrying up close to make sure that all three gearboxes are firing parallel to each other. And then the question came about that how we were going to power it. So I actually put a question out on my Facebook to see if anyone was a little bit more up to date with electronics and circuit boards and bits and pieces like that. The best way to do it, and just sort of brainstorm, because this isn't a closed project. If you do want to give us any feedback or any input, or if there's anything you feel that we should do, please let us know and we'll try and incorporate it if it's relevant. So what we decided to do is, we knew we wanted to run it off one trigger, just for simplicity and ease of use and maintaining. And then it was like, well, what we're going to do. So what we did is we got 3 gate Pico SSR3 MOSFETs, and just to show you how small these things are, because we don't want anything too big. We want it to be nice and compact as possible, because let's face it, 3249 gearboxes is going to be quite a big thing anyway. Now, if you haven't seen these MOSFETs before, that is how small they are. It's a very simple MOSFET system, but all it is, you can fit these into your normal AGs to stop arcing on your trigger contacts and boost up the trigger response. And the way it works, it stores you route your power up to the MOSFET, and then you run a signal wire to your trigger unit, which stops shorting out of contacts if you're using like standard trigger contacts, and it's taking away the sort of the strain and then the current going through the system from your trigger just to the MOSFET system. So you're giving a signal to your MOSFET system, and that's distributing power through your wires. Now, the reason why we went with these MOSFETs is because they're inline MOSFETs. They can just be soldered onto any sort of simple wiring loom. They don't require any sensors like the Titans. When putting in V2s, they don't require any sensors or certain mounting points. We didn't want it to be complicated, so we've kept it simple, and gone with 3 Pico SSRs, which is good. So those will be wired up to the gearboxes. We're going to have an individual power feed for each gearbox. Whether they're going to be run on 7.4, 11.1s, I don't know yet. We'll have to see what the rate of fire is like. But when we did a quick test on all 3 gearboxes firing on 11.1 at the same time, it sounded ridiculous. It sounded really unusual, to be honest, because the amount of air that was coming out the front. So we're going to wire these up to the motors, power from the MOSFET to the batteries. We're going to have 3 batteries, 1 on each gearbox, and then what we're going to do is run all the signal wires off the MOSFETs to the one trigger, and we're going to have one trigger for the user to push. Now, what we're also going to do is we're going to isolate the triggers. So one of these light up switches will be connected to each signal wire going from a MOSFET to the trigger. So you'll click this, it will light up, and it will show that either gearbox 1, 2 or 3 is now live. What we'll also do is have more of these switches on, I don't know if they'll be these switches or a different type of switch, connected from the battery to, in line with the battery, sorry, so that if we did want to virtually cut off all power to the MOSFET, say if there was a, I don't know, say if we went to a mill sim with it and it got wet and the MOSFETs just started firing on their own, we can just turn the switches off, cut the power, just in case, for safety reasons and malfunctions and bits and pieces like that. So we'll be able to turn 1, 2 and 3, we'll be able to run each gearbox individually if we want to, we'll be able to run the pair, we'll be able to run 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 1 and 3, just 2, it'll just, the user will be able to pick exactly what they want to do. So we've got that underway. We've got some more high quality silicon 16 gauge wire for the looms. We're going to keep the looms nice and short, and then we've got a box where all the fuses are going to go and all the safeguards to make sure this doesn't either 1 catch on fire or 2 break a short and then just one of the gearbox start firing off on its own. So as far as we're aware, all this is done. We'll need to get these chronoed as soon as they've got a barrel and a hop system attached to it. And then the issue that we're looking forward after that, also, which is included in the sort of the electrical stage of it, is the feed. So we'll have 3 individual hop units. We've decided there's 2 things we can do. We can either go for M249 hop units or M4 style hop units. The 249 hop units, we might have an issue because the feed is on the side, and we might get some kind of interference from the other gearboxes on the feeds. It will also mean the feeds have to come on the outside of the rifle and then back under if we've mounted the mags underneath. So what we're going to do, we're going to use M4 style hop units. We're going to mount them in here, probably come up with some kind of machined piece to hold them in place, make sure they're all true. And the feeds will be on the bottom. Then what we're going to use is we're going to use Aries LMG box mags, because they're small. They hold probably about 1,000 to 1,200 rounds. So each hop unit will have its own individual feed of ammo, and those will be ran in the same loop off the motors, which is a very old school way that the 249s used to be ran. That's how I used to use mine. I used to run a feed off the motor wires to the box mag, and then if you're using a 7.4 or 11.1, the box mag would always keep up with the feed of ammo to the gearbox firing. So I haven't designed a system that we'll use for the box mags yet. I don't know how we're going to fill them up as well, but what we're going to do is we're going to get these firing as they should be mounted. We're going to get the hop units installed, mounted and true, make sure we've got some kind of system to keep the barrels nice and true as well, and then we're going to find a system for the box mags and basically come up with the full internal system, and then we're going to design something to go on the outside of it. It could be something wacky, it could be something fairly plain. We haven't really come across that yet. A lot of people have put ideas across that have seen this coming into Bespoke, that we should model it off something like out of Destiny or Infinite Warfare, just make it look a little bit wacky, do something new rather than just following trends and trying to replicate something else. So that's this wrap up for episode 1 of the Dreadnought project. In the next episode we'll be starting with either the bracing of the gearboxes or the wiring. This is going to be like I say, a full series. We're going to try and go through everything that we've done. If we're not doing it live on the camera, we'll go through it always afterwards and put through to you guys how we've done it. So if you like the idea of this series, if you like the idea of going through a full build for something absolutely ridiculous, please let us know. Also, be happy to give your comments down below on any ideas, any suggestions, anything you can think. If you're an electronics expert and you've got a better idea how to run things, if you wanted to run it off some kind of custom-made circuit board, let us know down below, because we'd love this to turn into not only a bespoke project but also a community project as well. So we hope you like the idea of this series. It's not something like a bespoke project. We want it to be more of like a community project. We'd love your ideas, we'd love your feedback, we'd love your suggestions. So if you've got anything, like I say, put it in the comments below. I'll go through and read them all in each episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in episode number 2. Thank you.